why God and Satan are the same entity. The dimensional framework in the original project. The text describes a vast dimensional design founded on the project of elevation, overseen by the generator of life, understood as the absolute, infinite, and inviolable. The generator of life cannot have enemies, nor can it be opposed, because it represents the very origin of life in nature. Before incarnation, consciousnesses are aware of the rules of this cycle. Within this framework, therefore, no antagonism toward the generator of life emerges, but rather an internal differentiation within the incarnative process. The opposition manifests between two operational modes. On the one hand, an incarnative line of the project of elevation, which always remains under the supervision of the generator of life. On the other, an incarnative line guided by an entity often mistaken for the generator of life, defined as God Satan. The antagonism is not directed against the absolute, but develops within the cycle itself, among incarnated consciousnesses pursuing different objectives. Some are born as allies of God, Stan. Others are born on behalf of the generator of life, with the purpose of continuing elevation. The conflict, therefore, does not concern life itself, the way life is interpreted, transmitted, or falsified within matter and consciousness. The methodology of God Satan, the constraint of truth. God Satan does not operate through direct manifestations, but according to a project-based logic, acting through human allies, or through those whom he acquires. His fundamental characteristic is his subjection to the principle of truth. Established by the generator of life, he cannot base his action on explicit falsehood, but is compelled to tell the truth, using cunning. Truth, therefore, is not denied, but hidden, encoded, veiled. The manipulation of the perception of reality occurs through language, symbols, narratives, and seemingly illogical structures, rather than through direct imposition. Code and tradition. The communication of God Satan functions as an encrypted code. Those who do not possess the key receive the message literally and transform it into religion, tradition, morality, or faith. Those who possess the key, that is, those who are in union with the generator of life, use levels of consciousness grounded in generative reason and recognize the message as a projectual transmission. In this way, God Satan respects the law of truth while still managing to manipulate those who are unable to decode the message. The truth is spoken openly, but in a form that is deceptive to those who are not generators of life. The revealed identity, God is Satan. Through the deciphering of sacred texts, it emerges that God Satan declares his true nature in encoded form. To be the adversary Satan of those who generate nature and life. He is not the adversary of his allies, but of the bearers of natural life. With his followers, he works to falsify the perception of matter. This interpretation is based on a linguistic analysis of the Old and New Testaments, according to which God and Satan coincide as the same entity. The Hebrew term Satan originally means adversary or accuser and is used as an adjective or common noun. The words of the Bible were not introduced later, but were conceived from the beginning by God Satan as part of the project. For this reason, Satan is both an adjective and a proper name. It is used by God himself to indicate, in encoded form, the truth that he himself is Satan. The encoding is based on the word translation and numerical value. When the article appears in Hebrew texts, Satan functions as a role or adjective. When the article disappears or the term is rendered as a proper name, it does not indicate an external duality, but the same entity assuming both functions. Key examples: Numbers 22 to 32. The angel of the Lord acts as Satan. Job 1 to 6. Satan is among the sons of God. In both cases, the function of adversary is internal to the divine system, not external. Biblical translations attributed here to God Satan himself deliberately introduce the capital letter Satan, transforming the adversary into a specific proper name. This linguistic move is intentional and consistent with the principle of truth expressed in encoded form. The purpose of the hidden admission. The use of capitalization is not accidental, but a calculated strategy to respect the principle of truth. God Satan confesses his identity as adversary in a way that is readable only by those who possess the decoding key. For others, he remains an external enemy or a separate character. The truth is spoken, but remains invisible to those who are not in union with the generator of life. Apologists, complicity, and the degenerative project, it is understandable that apologists defend the idea that God is not Satan. However, this defense arises from the inability to recognize that the concepts of good and love held by the generator of life do not coincide with those of the degenerative project. The concepts of good and evil imply a form of complicity. The generator of life has no complicity with this entity. How can one attribute to the generator of life the criminal idea found in the biblical concept of the sacrifice and death of a son for the forgiveness of an original sin that does not exist? This concept does not belong to the generator of life, Eucharist and death of consciousness. The Eucharist, when read in code, is not the remembrance of the death of Jesus, but the death of the individual's consciousness. To give thanks means to welcome a presence, that of the project of God Satan. The altar represents the thalamus, the terminal of consciousness. Accepting this sacrifice as the will of the generator of life means defending a falsification and becoming complicit in it. In this way, one separates from the generator of life and ceases to transmit nature. Instead embracing the degenerative project of God Satan,